1522, Ignatius spent some months praying in a cave on the edge of Manresa and composing the spiritual exercises in his notebook, drawing from his experiences. The cave overlooks the narrow but rapid Cardinaux River and has a view to the Monserrat Range dominant on the horizon. This daily view would have served as a reminder of his earlier pledge. In March that year, Ignatius, the pilgrim soldier, had laid his sword at the feet of the statue of the Madonna on Monserrat after a vigil of prayer and placed himself under the banner of Christ. Ignatius then walked for a day across the fields to Manresa, where he lived for 10 months. There he begged for his keep, eating mainly plants and only accepting meat and a little wine on Sundays. For a while, to punish himself for his past vanities, he went to extremes, letting his hair and nails grow long and unkempt. He experienced often what he described as a beautiful apparition that at first gave him joy, but then left him feeling terribly sad and agitated, and in a voice suggested he was wasting his life and that it was impossible to maintain. He expelled this temptation with the thought, "Can you, wretched one, promise me 1 hour of life?" and then experience peace. Hearing Mass daily and assisting at Vespers and Compline was a source of consolation, and reading over the history of the Passion filled him with joy and calm. During this time, he helped in a hospital for his food and lodging. He began noticing new extreme changes in his soul, alternating from consolation to desolation, which caused him to question the life he had entered. He came to know some holy people who expressed confidence in him. He was helped by a well-respected older woman who said to him one day, "Would that the Lord Jesus might appear to you one day." He wondered what Jesus would look like if he did. For a while he would confess his sins excessively, listing them repeatedly, scourging himself, fasting, pleading with God, and yet still feeling tormented by the scruples, even though he knew them to be trivial. The extent of it brought him near to despair. Gradually he began to learn from God the discernment of spirits, and eventually was delivered from his interior turmoil through the will of our merciful Lord. Ignatius developed a daily pattern of 7 hours prayer, assisting people who came for advice, and for the rest of the day devoting his thoughts to God, reflecting on his prayer and reading. On resting at the end of the day, wonderful insights came to him, and his sleep was interrupted. Pondering this, he concluded that he had given enough time in conversation with God, and his sleep was necessary, and the illuminations were not from the good Spirit. One day he found himself invited by a vision of meat to break his resolution not to eat it, and his confessor rightly suggested he might examine if he was being tempted. Ignatius recognized that God was teaching him through this experience. Another time he had a vision of the Holy Trinity. The consolations or joy afterward were great and continued whenever he prayed to the Blessed Trinity. Also through a vision he was given understanding of how God created the world. He received many consolations and visions during this time and was given fruitful insights for others and gained strength. Ignatius gave up his vigorous penances and began to trim his hair and nails. One day, on the way to St. Paul's Church near Manresa, he sat on the bank of the Cardinaux, gazing at the deep waters. While seated there, the eyes of his soul were opened. His mind was enlightened on many subjects, spiritual and intellectual. Such was the clarity of knowledge that everything appeared to him in a new light, with a magnitude not equalled in the total of his life. He was from that point on a changed person, with new understanding and discernment.